So this video and this Tafo talk, I wanted this to just be a little bit of an encouragement, mainly because I think a lot of people get very discouraged when they enter tournaments or they feel like they're entitled to certain results because they've practiced or they've gone previous results. So, for example, let's say you got like 13th at a local, you made a really good run. I think the expectation for most people from there is like, okay, I got 13th here this week. I'm definitely going to get 13th next week. And then they come to their tournament next week and they get like 25th. They lose to players that they feel like they shouldn't lose to. And they get really frustrated. Or sometimes, like you may be practicing, you start off, you grind your tech skill, you play net play, you do your 20xx drills, but you find that like you've hit a wall, or you feel like things aren't working out. And the one thing I really want to emphasize here is that your skill is not necessarily an absolute when it comes to competition. Well, in some aspects it is, but it's more relative. And what I mean by this is that imagine like your skills, like your speed, like you're driving a car and you have your gauge or your speedometer, and it shows a certain speed. But to maintain, let's say like your current speed is 70 miles per hour, and you want to up that speed. Well, to do that, you have to constantly maintain you have to constantly pour in gas and put your foot on the pedal to constantly maintain that at the very minimum. And when you relent a little bit, it slows down over time. Now, why I say this is because every time you get better, I think or somebody gets better, we're under the premise that skill is just in a vacuum, meaning that no one else is improving and no one else is getting better. It's only me that's getting better. Where in reality, like I could be investing 5 hours of work, but the people roughly around my skill level could also be investing like 5 hours per day. And when we both come to a tournament next week, if we're practicing equally as efficient, my 10 to 15 to 20 hours per week aren't really going to mean much relative to the other people who are also practicing 10 to 20 hours per week. And in fact, if you get a little cocky and you're like, oh yeah, like I'm so good now, and you stop practicing, well, everybody else is practicing, everyone else is learning matchups, everyone else is getting better, everyone else is grinding tech skill. And so over time, these people are slowly going to lapse over you. Your 13th and 17th place that you felt like was on lock forever is vulnerable because there are people hungrier than you. And for you to just even maintain your ranking or maintain your relative skill level in your local PR means that you have to, at the bare minimum, grind as much as the people around you, or else you're going to fall behind. Now, how do you go up the ranks could be its own little ordeal, because not only do you have to practice as much as other people, you have to practice smarter and practice more than them in whatever way, shape, or capacity. It doesn't necessarily mean just to grind out tech skill 24/7. It may be analyzing the game. It might be talking to top players about the game, receiving coaching, looking into matchups, posting, strategizing, theory crafting, all that stuff to overcome people. And this is why, especially at the top, when you have the people in the top 10 grinding as much as you can, and you're like the outsider looking in, let's say like you want to hit top 15 and you're like number 20 and you're working decently hard. Well, if you're not working as hard as the people in the top 15, you're falling relatively even further behind them. And so that's what kind of makes it difficult to rise up the ranks once you're at the very top, because everyone is already pumping in a ton of gas with their feet. They're like pretty exhausted, but you have to keep pushing further. And that's where it gets really difficult. Now, the bright side of this is that if, let's say, you are not in the top 100 or you're rising the ranks of your local PR, chances are, there are some people that are working hard too. But there are many people that don't work very hard at Melee. And like over time, your hard work will relatively improve you to be better than them over time. Sometimes it's not always the quickest or the most observable thing, but the more you practice and the more you grind, the more you do than other players, the more you will catch up to them and the more likely you will surpass them in a quicker amount of time. So that's the kind of relief. Like when you start at the bottom of the hill, there are people who are satisfied with running like a 10-minute mile or a 9-minute mile or 8-minute mile. But you might be running an 11-minute mile and you'd be like, okay, I got to keep going. I'm not satisfied. I'm going to keep going. There are some people who are going to be running with you or running a little bit faster than you. But you just keep going, and you keep grinding week after week after week, and then you'll see results. Sometimes you'll fall down a little bit, sometimes you'll slow down, sometimes you'll encounter like a little avalanche and sets you back a little bit. But you keep working, keep working, and you outwork the people who you want to beat, and outwork the people you don't want to catch up to you. And that's the secret to like any competition. Because I think one of the interesting things is that I assume that most people, because it's a Smash game, come from like the world of Nintendo, where like if you figure out a pattern or you figure out something, like you beat the game, you beat the boss, and you master it, like it's a speed run. But in Melee, you're not competing just against a computer and patterns, you're competing against other people. So when you grind tech skill and you grind little techniques, your absolute skill gets better, but your relative skill might stay the same if other players are also learning that. So think of it, I mean, another example I could give is like college. When you are graded on a curve, if something's easy, it's going to be easy to everybody else. So to just maintain the status quo, like you have to just maintain status quo and not fall behind, you have to learn all the easy stuff. But what will get you ahead is grinding out not only the easy stuff, but the hard stuff that other people won't grind. So hopefully that's a little bit of an encouragement to whip your ass into shape, that you're not entitled to results forever. If you start practicing, it will show. But, you know, if you start to work harder and smarter than the people around you, you will eventually surpass them. You will get better than them, or you will get closer to them, and hopefully eventually beat them. And so just wanted to bring that out there. I feel like a lot of people ask me or get discouraged, but keep in mind you're competing against other people who are also working very hard. Melee is not an easy game. It's not an easy competition. It's definitely a race, but keep running.